Commissioner Gerard.
So I attended my first JWB board meeting last week. There was quite a lot of discussion about the funding for Juvenile Welfare Board's Family Services Initiative, which had been going on for 8 years, and that 211 had been administering. Right before the meeting, they sent a letter asking to be relieved of that contract because it had been a problem. However, that discontinues all the funding from Juvenile Welfare Board to 211, and I raised the point that 211 and information and referral is pretty much infrastructure to the human services system, and it needs to be there and it needs to be healthy. So I asked them to convene a meeting of our HHSCC leadership, whatever, it goes on and on, which several of us serve on, and we haven't had a meeting in quite a while, but I think it was getting ready to be disbanded, but I'm hoping we have at least one more meeting, because what the result of this will be that 211 will come back to the county and ask that we replace some of that funding, I'm sure. And I really do think that JWB ought to be picking up some of the responsibility there. So I will see if I can represent that appropriately.
Commissioner Peters.
So I thought there was a task force that was looking into 211, and I think, Karen, you represented both JWB and the county. I've heard nothing about that. It is absolutely infrastructure, in my opinion, and it should be operating as so, and it isn't. And we got a really good glimpse of how bad it really was operating, and so where are we? I'd love to have an update. I'd love to know where the task force is. I would love to know where we are on all of this and kind of what's the projected future.
We recently, Randy Russell with Healthy St. Pete has stepped up to the plate. I have talked with staff about this along the way, and they convened one Zoom meeting. There's another one scheduled soon. They've been out talking with the community to see what their needs are in the health and human services areas. During last year's budget, I actually forwarded decision packages to fund 211 in a more robust manner. That was not recommended by our staff. I do feel a bit of frustration in this entire subject. I have tried to advocate with the Juvenile Welfare Board. I've tried to advocate with our Pinellas County staff that we need to figure this out. Actually, the community needs assessment that you've championed, Commissioner Peters, became the relevant direction that the staff wanted to go in first, and so that's where we're respectfully going at this point.
Okay, so I thank you for that, and I wish we had heard more, and I should have asked for follow-up from Barry. I didn't. But there's a couple of things that I would like to see us move forward on something and get regular updates on this and where we are, and not maybe just put it off on another organization and let it take 2 to 5 years. But also, when it comes to decision packages, I think when a decision package is submitted, every one of us should get a copy of it. Had I known you submitted that, I would have backed that up and encouraged something different, but I never, ever see the decision packages, and that should be as transparent to these commissioners, especially if it's a commissioner presenting it. Just like mine weren't presented when I submitted them, nobody knew them until I distributed them. And I just think that if we're going to, either we can choose to distribute it to everybody, but I think we should all be able to see them, because I think there was a missed opportunity. And we had a lot of extra money that maybe could have helped to do this, and that's a missed opportunity and a big one, in my opinion. So that's just enough in my opinion. But I think every budget decision package that a commissioner submits, it should be transparent, and all of us should get a copy of it and see it.
The commissioners get all the decision packages, and in addition to that, you get the list of things that we recommend not funding for any organization. So you do have.
Do I get a summary of it? Because you only do summaries. When I submitted mine, it was a one-line summary, and so nobody had any clue at the background. I mean, I did a whole big thing, and they got not even a half a paragraph, it was like 1 or 2 sentences, and that is not a decision package.
You do a summary, but there is a detail that goes with that, and that is attached as part of the packet.
Yeah,
Okay?
well then, so I missed it last year, but I know at least my first year, that was nobody got it until I submitted it to
Now,
everybody.
the other issue on this is a separate organization, and they have a separate governing board. If you want us to take these over and start doing that, well, then, then we need to really talk about funding, because there's a component part to that, which is, the other side, which is when we come and set the levy. So, they are a separate organization. They they were working with us, but they were also working with this Healthy St. Pete Foundation. They offered and set up to do an assessment, which is the first piece. It's not always just throwing money at it. It's also looking at the way they do their business. And so that they were doing that process. So we're at the table, but we're not leading that because it's not our organization.
Okay, well, I think the first step would be is if we all agree it's infrastructure and not infrastructure. And so I think work should be done on it. It's just my point. Thank you.
Further discussion on this before we move on.
Just
Commissioner Gerard.
one more comment. I think if you watch the meeting from December, Randy Russell did a presentation about their work on this and how long it would take and what it would cost to have the dream system that the JWB board seems to be talking about. And he mentioned at least 18 months. So, I mean, I think that's probably true, but I think we're talking apples and oranges. What they're talking about is not basic information and referral, and that's what I'm talking about. I think that's very important as an underpinning of all the rest of the system. What they're talking about is warm handoffs and appointments and, like we're talking about with our mental health system, for the entire system. And that's, in my studied opinion, is darn near impossible. So yes, it will take a long time to look at that, so.